Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to continue with part 2 of our discussion about Donald Trump and the wall and his famous State of the Union address. So sit back and enjoy. Yes, I did see the State of the Union address. I cleared my schedule, and I guess this is following on from my previous video I did about Trump and the wall, and I was wondering when was he going to was he going to cave, or, basically who was going to blink first? And surprisingly, it was Donald Trump who blinked first, but there was a reason for that. Let me take a sip of my Great Gatsby cup here and put this down, and we'll get stuck right into it. If there was a reason he blinked, it's because it was quite clear that the Democrats were going to hold out maybe for a second month, and that would have interfered with Donald Trump's State of the Union address. And I think Trump didn't want to do that. So Trump did cave in, and obviously, again, Ann Coulter wrote these scathing articles. I think one of the famous pieces she wrote was, I don't know, it was a tweet or something, where she said that, George H.W. Bush is no longer the biggest wimp president, which he wasn't a wimp, by the way. He was a fucking monster, that guy. But anyway, she implied he was a wimp, and he was no longer the biggest wimp because Donald Trump had caved on this. But I think Trump was, again, being strategic, and he was dealing with the problems. He really had something he wanted to say, I think, this year at the State of the Union address, and he really wanted to go over his record. And the State of the Union is really essentially a 2-hour piece of political theatre, and it's national and it's broadcast live. And obviously, if the shutdown had continued through February, the State of the Union address probably would have had to be cancelled or held from the White House, which would not have been as glamorous, or what I mean. So essentially, for the case of theatrics, Trump had to kind of really do something. And as I said in the previous video where I discussed this matter, this really is about the election in 2020. If Donald Trump gets his wall, he will most likely win the 2020 election, and we'll have 8 years of Donald Trump, like we had 8 years of Ronald Reagan. But obviously the Dems and even some aspects of the GOP don't like that, because they're either part of the swamp, they're either part of the deep state, or they're part of the globalist cabal. So anyway, Trump did end the. He said it was for 3 weeks. I don't think he'll go straight back into another shutdown of the government. I think. The reason Donald Trump wanted to end the government shutdown is he had a very elaborate piece of political theatre planned for the State of the Union address. And if the shutdown had continued on into late February, the State of the Union address would have had to be done from the Oval Office or something nowhere near as grand. You've got to remember, the State of the Union is a 2-hour piece of live television on every network. And I cleared my schedule on Wednesday so I could watch it. It was broadcast live here on Wednesday, the Wednesday that just went, from about 1 to 3 o'clock. And I thought it was one of Trump's most defining moments, where he really got to state before both sides of the House what his achievements were, and it was uninterrupted, where he could state his case without having CNN, coming in and covering it with fake news, or even Breitbart or anybody. He could just basically broadcast his message for 2 hours. So I really think it was probably important for him to do that, and I think that was the main motivation for him ending the government shutdown. He did say that the government shutdown would end for 3 weeks. Now, I'm not sure if it'll re-begin soon, or whether he'll go a different path, which I covered in the last video, which is to go the state of emergency and to use essentially the American military or the National Guard to build the wall, which I think is an interesting way to go. He may try one more time to continue with the government shutdown, and I think that's not a bad idea. But he was criticised by various factors for giving in on the shutdown. In the sense, he did blink first. So in a sense, that is a victory for the Dems. But there's a lot of funny things that came out of the State of the Union address. I thought one of the funniest things is the way that all the new feminist women, Democrat women, they all dressed in white, And I'd just like to give them a stern one. All that white, neo-fascist, white nationalist signalling from the white Democrats. It's tisk. I mean, that's Democrats, the party of the KKK, and here they are, all dressed in white, signalling white nationalism. I've just got to. Very naughty, very, very naughty. But apparently milk is literally Hitler these days simply because it's white. So what do? They all dress in white and march in, and people just basically put hoods on them. And then you had memes galore. And I mean, these memes were so offensive to the Democrats that Facebook is banning them in some countries, and that, I know that some of the memes I've shared, people in England can't see them. Like, they look at my page and they can't see some of the shit. So this really is like, we really have entered a kind of state of 1984. But back to the State of the Union, I really think, Trump had an elaborate 2-hour kind of piece of political theatre he wanted to perform, and, where he wanted to state his case that America is doing well on unemployment, on crime, on, lowering crime, particularly through the, ICE and, deportation agenda, and how that also, the deportation agenda helps the local working class and the local middle class. So I think, he had a lot of really strong points, and I thought it was very important for him to do that. So I do think it was probably the right thing to do, to end the shutdown so he could do the State of the Union before the full House. I guess it's going to be, controversial, or, we'll see whether it was the wise thing to do in the long run. I don't think so. I think that, Trump's been, and this is, I think, the part that mainstream media don't get. They always try and portray Trump as kind of far-right candidate. But he's not really that, you know what I mean? Like, he's actually more a centre nationalist. But he is a nationalist. And an interesting thing is nationalism is always portrayed as in its extreme kind of manifestations. But Trump is attempting to show that nationalism can manifest itself in a way that's not in a non-extremist way. And this, in a way, is... I think what the elite really fear, that, something like a mild nationalism can be expressed and can be politically, politically manifested in a way that is not like the Nazis, like that Trump really isn't Hitler, you know what I mean? Like, really. And that he's something far more mild, And the same accusation can be made in some aspects of the left. I mean, some of the right-wing people who fear people like Alexander Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders they're going to be Stalin, they're going to be Mao, and there's all these memes. And maybe they are, I don't know. But, maybe there's a way to manifest a socialism that is also not in this ultra-extreme variety, you know what I mean? Like, where it ends into like Castro and, like the economy being kind of Cuban, and where you can't buy a tin of beans, or, where you can still have 10 varieties of Oreos, basically, under socialism. I don't know. But at least with Trump, from a right-wing perspective, he's presenting, I think, mainstream America with a mild nationalism, and I think its benefits will be manifold, and that he was just attempting to explicate that. Now, I do believe he is more nationalist than where he is right now, and I think a lot of even more radical nationalists need to look at Trump and think what he's doing is smart, because he's taken a centre nationalist position, and I think he will slowly move it further and further right. And I think that is actually how you end up in the further right direction. You don't instantly, propose some radical nationalist right agenda and expect that that's going to appear tomorrow. If you really want to appear somewhere else, you need to be more centrist and then slowly move it in the direction you want. And it will be the same for a left-winger who wanted to, be a mild socialist, but then slowly move it in the direction of communism. It would be a similar thing, So I guess that's just my observations of, what you call political praxis in early 20th century Western politics. But you see this happening all over the West at the moment. In Europe and in other countries, there's a similar thing. Salvini, again, he's not Mussolini, but he's again a strong centre nationalist, and he's moving things slowly more towards the right. How far he wants to go in that direction, we'll wait and see. I don't believe any of these current nationalist leaders that have been elected, or ones that want to be elected, like Marine Le Pen, are what you call real fascists. But they might have some aspects that might have some similar ideas of which they would be a milder interpretation of, or manifestation of. And I think that, well, we'll wait and see what happens with that. But I think we're in a very interesting time, and I think that the centre that has normally been held by neoliberal capitalism has been, is in a state of crisis, and this is why you are seeing, I guess, what's called the authentic right, which is the nationalist right, and the authentic left, which is the socialist left, returning to the main stage of political politics. And there we are. And that's my summary of the situation we're in, and I guess what happened with Donald Trump's recent State of the Union address. We'll see what happens. Is year 3 of the Trump, or year 3, just full stop, you know. I called Donald Trump year 0, you know, as a kind of reference to the Cambodian massacre, just to stir up Liberals again, which is one of my favourite occupations.